She shows real interest, then something shifts and she goes quiet. Most men read that silence as a door closing, but what if that assumption is the very thing destroying connections before they ever get the chance to grow? Because sometimes when a woman creates distance, it has nothing to do with losing interest. It happens because things started feeling genuine. And the uncomfortable reality is this: if you respond the way most men instinctively do, seeking explanations, offering reassurances, pushing for answers, you do not repair anything. You silently confirm the exact fear that caused her to pull back in the first place. There is one psychological shift that almost every man misreads completely. Once you see it for what it truly is, you will immediately be able to tell the difference between a woman who has genuinely moved on and one who is retreating from emotions she is not yet ready to face. And once that distinction becomes clear to you, you will stop quietly sabotaging yourself without ever realizing you were doing it. Here is something most men never come to understand. When a woman starts developing feelings she did not plan for, her mind does not respond with joy, it responds with alarm, not because you did anything wrong, but because emotional closeness feels like surrendering control. It is similar to standing near the edge of a cliff. The fear is not because you are falling, it is because you could. That is what vulnerability feels like to someone who has learned through experience that letting people close leads to getting hurt. And this is likely where your biggest error occurred. You tried to eliminate the fear. You explained your intentions. You offered reassurance. You leaned in further, believing that more clarity would create more safety. But instead of calming her emotionally, it had the opposite effect. It confirmed the very thing she was dreading, that feelings were accelerating beyond what she could manage. So she withdrew, not to play games, not to run a test on you, but simply to breathe. And if you do not recognize what is happening in that moment, you will confuse fear for rejection and respond in ways that steadily push her further away. You believed being open and explanatory was the emotionally mature thing to do, but what you were actually doing was trying to resolve her discomfort so that you could relieve your own. Think back to the last time she went cold on you. You sent that extra message not because the situation required it, but because the silence was making you anxious. You wanted certainty not for her benefit, but so you would not have to sit inside the discomfort of not knowing where you stood. And without realizing it, you were conditioning her nervous system to associate closeness with pressure. Many women today are raised to honor independence above almost everything else, to build careers, to own their lives, to never position themselves as someone who needs another person. And that is genuinely powerful, but it carries a hidden tension. When a woman who has built her identity around self-sufficiency begins developing real feelings, an internal war starts. One part of her longs for connection. Another part fears being consumed by it. She begins asking herself questions with no easy answers. If I let this person in, do I lose myself? If I care this deeply, does that reveal weakness? What if I end up needing him more than he needs me? The woman who appears hardest to reach is very often the one who wants closeness the most. She is simply terrified of what allowing it might cost her. And here is something worth sitting with honestly. Have you ever pulled away from something you deeply wanted simply because the wanting itself frightened you? A professional opportunity, a dream you quietly talked yourself out of pursuing. If that has ever been true for you, then you already understand exactly what she is moving through. The painful irony is this: the men who create this level of emotional disruption in a woman are often the ones genuinely worth holding on to. Ordinary connections do not produce this kind of internal chaos. Only the real ones do. So if she is retreating, it may not be because you are falling short. It may be precisely because you are what she has always been afraid of encountering. And here is the part that will change how you look back on every interaction you have had with her. She has almost certainly already tested you multiple times without ever signaling that a test was underway. Women do not sit down and consciously design these moments. They arise instinctively as emotional self-protection. She goes quiet to see whether you will panic and come running. She brings up other men to observe how you respond. She cancels plans to find out whether you will spiral or simply carry on with your day. She opens up about something personal and then watches carefully to see how you hold it. And here is the part that might be difficult to hear. You probably did not pass these tests, not because you are lacking, but because you responded from a place of insecurity rather than groundedness. When she went cold, your anxiety spiked and the messages increased. When she mentioned another man, you either let your reaction show or overcorrected, trying to seem indifferent. When she canceled, you made it about your feelings rather than just moving forward. What she was actually measuring was never whether you liked her. She already knew that. She was measuring whether you were secure enough to hold space for her complexity without unraveling or trying to control the outcome. Could you give her room without making it a statement about you? Could you stay steady when she was not? Could you remain interested without becoming consumed? But here is what matters most. You likely had no idea these tests were even happening. Nobody teaches this. And now that you do know, you can show up differently. Not by running counter tactics, but by being genuinely secure within yourself. If any of this has resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Now let us talk about the actual signs. This first one will completely reframe what you thought was rejection. One day there is depth, laughter, real back and forth between you. The next day there are short replies, long gaps, emotional distance. You probably read that as fading interest. But here is what was actually taking place. The warmer things got, the colder she became the following day. It was not random. It was proportional. A deeply connected conversation one evening almost guarantees she creates separation the next morning. Why? Because intimacy triggers anxiety, and anxiety triggers withdrawal. If she truly felt nothing, the temperature would simply stay cold. She would not engage at all. But this oscillation, this back and forth, that is an internal conflict expressing itself in real time. Part of her wants to move closer, part of her wants to guard herself, and the protective part tends to win, at least in the short term. There is a pattern inside the pattern. Notice when the coldness arrives. If it consistently follows moments of real vulnerability after she shared something personal, after a conversation that felt unusually close, that is your confirmation. You have probably been in exactly this situation. Everything felt perfect, and then without warning, it turned to ice, and you spent days trying to identify what you did wrong. She was not rejecting you. She was managing her own fear. And once you understand that, everything about how you respond shifts. You stop taking it personally. You stop the panicked reaction. You stop doing the one thing that consistently makes it worse, which is chasing harder when she pulls back. Understanding the pattern returns your power to you. Now here is a sign that is subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. She takes hours to reply to your messages, but she watches your stories within minutes of you posting them. She seems emotionally distant in person, but you catch her eyes on you when she thinks you are not aware. She tells you she has been busy, yet she recalls specific details from conversations that happened weeks ago, things you barely even remember mentioning. This is the behavior of someone paying close attention while trying to appear as though they are not. And what that tells you is straightforward. She cares far more than she is allowing you to see. Women who genuinely have no interest do not spend mental energy monitoring your life. They do not replay conversations with you. They do not track subtle shifts in your mood or your routine. But a woman who is afraid of her own feelings, she is watching everything. She knows when you typically post. She noticed you were out with different friends last weekend. She registered that you updated your photo. And the part that probably frustrates her most is that noticing these things confirms to her that she cares. And caring means exposure. So she compensates by maintaining distance in direct contact. Think about the last time you were genuinely drawn to someone. You caught yourself paying attention to details you would ordinarily ignore. Checking their social presence even after deciding you would not. That is exactly what she is doing, except she is fighting it harder because the fear runs deeper. What this means practically is that you can communicate with her without saying anything at all. Live your life with intention. Share the things you are genuinely passionate about. Show growth. Show substance. Show that you are doing well, regardless of whether she is paying attention. Not to engineer a reaction, but because a man who is truly invested in his own life is naturally compelling. Even if she never responds, even if she never acknowledges it, she is watching. And it is landing. There is another signal that shows up outside your direct contact with her. The people in her life start behaving differently around you. Her friends give you knowing glances. They seem caught off guard when she acts indifferent toward you. Some of them may pull you aside and let things slip. Things like she talks about you, or you should reach out to her, or do not walk away from this. Why does that matter? Because a woman who is not invested does not make someone a recurring subject of conversation with the people closest to her. If her friends are engaged in the situation, it is because she has given them significant material to work with. They have heard about the conversations you have had, the way you made her feel, the moments she cannot seem to set aside. They have also heard about her fears, her uncertainty, the confusion she cannot quite resolve. Her inner circle knows both sides of the story. And here is the deeper layer. If her friends begin engineering situations where you two end up alone, or if they find reasons to leave when you arrive, that is not accidental. That is deliberate. They are quietly trying to get her out of her own way. And honestly, that external confirmation tells you more than her words ever have. You may have wondered whether you are reading too much into things, seeing what you want to see. But when the people closest to her are actively working to create opportunities, that is real evidence because her inner circle is protective. They do not invest energy in people who are not worth it. If they are rooting for you, it means they recognize something genuine, even when she is too afraid to say it herself. Here is the approach that separates emotionally grounded men from everyone else. When she pulled back, you most likely made one of two errors. You either chased harder, trying to talk her into feeling safe, or you disappeared entirely, assuming she was just playing with you. Both approaches backfired. Chasing revealed that you needed her validation to feel okay. Walking away entirely suggested you were never truly invested. Neither created safety, neither deepened attraction. And look, that reaction is completely understandable. When someone you care about shuts down, every instinct you have tells you to either fix it or protect yourself. That is not weakness. That is human. So what actually creates movement in the right direction? Give her room without vanishing. Match her energy, not out of spite, but out of respect for where she is in her process. If she steps back, you step back too. Not as punishment, but as a quiet signal that you are not sitting in suspended animation waiting for her to determine your value. You have direction. You are building something. You are moving forward with or without her decision. But here is the nuance that makes the difference. When you pull back towards something real in your own life, not into emptiness. Stay engaged, but without pressure. Check in occasionally. Keep it natural, genuine, and grounded in something specific. The difference between reaching out in anxiety and reaching out from a full life is entirely detectable. One communicates desperation. The other communicates that your world is interesting enough to generate things worth sharing. And when she sees that her silence has not destabilized you, something changes in her. The fear begins to quiet. Here is what actually creates genuine attraction during this phase. Women are drawn to emotional depth and pushed away by emotional dependency. The line between the two is important. Depth means you are connected to your inner world. You can speak to what you feel. You are not threatened by vulnerability. Dependency means you require her to manage your emotional state, confirm your value, or give your life a sense of direction. One draws people in, the other exhausts them. Ask yourself honestly when she goes distant, are you unsettled because you are losing connection with someone who genuinely matters to you, or because you are losing the external validation that makes you feel acceptable? There is no judgment in the question, only awareness. And when it comes to sharing your own experience with fear and vulnerability, the framing matters enormously. Rather than telling her you are scared of losing her and placing the weight of your anxiety onto her, try acknowledging that you understand the hesitation because you have moved too fast before and paid the price for it. The meaning is identical. The energy is completely different. The first asks her to carry your discomfort. The second shows her you are fluent in the complexity of human emotion, including your own. What that does is give her permission to be imperfect. It removes the pressure to have it all sorted out. It shows her you can hold difficult emotions without needing them resolved immediately. And almost paradoxically, the moment you stop needing her in order to feel secure, she begins to feel genuinely safe around you. Because safety does not come from someone who grips tightly. It comes from someone steady enough to let things develop at their natural pace. That capacity is already in you. You simply need to trust it. And here is the final piece that reframes everything. Every hour you spend analyzing her signals is an hour you are not spending building your own life. Sit with that for a moment. You have put things on hold, waiting for her to arrive at a decision. Meanwhile, time passed. Things you could have pursued were missed, and you found yourself wondering why you felt like you were standing still. Stop being that version of yourself. Train your body not to impress her, but because physical discipline creates mental clarity. Go after what you want professionally. Not to prove something to her, but because a man with genuine purpose is naturally magnetic. Invest in the people around you who already recognize your value, not to manufacture the appearance of options, but because strong relationships are a constant reminder of who you are. Build something you are proud of, not for her approval, but because a man with a mission is a man worth choosing. You have likely already been doing some of this work. Acknowledge that. Give yourself credit for the effort you are already making. When she sees you moving forward, not desperate, not stalled, not fractured by her distance, two things happen. She recognizes that you are not pausing your life waiting for her verdict, and she begins to feel something shift. Because a man who is grounded within himself is a man she can consider trusting with her vulnerability. The paradox sits right here. The more your focus narrowed onto her, the less compelling you became. The more you redirect that focus back onto your own growth, the more naturally attractive you become, not because you are running a strategy, but because you are embodying the precise quality she is most afraid to trust: stability. And stability is not a lack of excitement. It is genuinely rare. You do not need to be one of the men who collapse when they are tested. You can be the man who understands her fear without being pulled under by it, the man who creates space without disappearing. The man who stays rooted when everything around him feels unclear. That is not maneuvering. That is maturity. And maturity is precisely what transforms fear into trust over time. Here is the final truth worth carrying with you. You cannot force someone to release their fear, but you can become the kind of man who makes fear feel like it was never necessary. Not through persuasion, not through repeated explanation, but through consistency, genuine depth, and a quiet, unshakable self-respect. This path is not a simple one. There have probably been situations where you showed up fully and still did not get what you were hoping for. That does not mean you fell short. It means you are learning to move through one of the most layered and demanding dimensions of human connection. The real measure is not whether she ultimately chooses you. It is whether you can remain genuinely interested without becoming consumed. Because the moment you tip from interest into obsession, you have already lost, and the loss that matters most is not her. It is yourself.